So we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Online Events Made Simple Live. Today, where I'm joined with Mark Sullivan. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Mark Sullivan. I'm Business Development Director at CircData. I've worked in the event technology sector for around 16 years.
Amazing.
I think the last year felt like 16 years.
It has.
On its own. But yeah, lots of positive things to talk about today. And yeah, very happy to join you, Jan.
Yes, thanks for joining. And for anyone who might have tuned in on your lunch break, remember to use the comments box if you've got any questions for me or Mark, or just want to let us know that you've tuned in, then let us know. If you're listening on demand as well on Spotify, then feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, which we will talk about in a bit. So Mark, I know that you currently work at CircData, but who is CircData? I think it's a very broad name. It could be anything in the industry.
Yeah.
So let us know more about what you do.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in its simplest form, we create connected event technology to help organisers build communities. So that's across physical, digital, and the word hybrid, which we all love to say over the next sort of few months. So yeah, that's its simplest form. And yeah, happy to go into more detail about what we do as we progress.
Yeah, definitely. So I can imagine this past year has been crazy for you. I know for the events industry itself, it's been a little bit crazy, a bit of a bumpy road, but I think we're nearly towards the end of it. Just as before we went live, we were just saying about how nice it is that the pubs are now open and we can actually kind of support these businesses. So it's nice that I feel like we are towards the end. And obviously virtual events have taken over our life. How have you found this past year? I mean, like you said, you've got over 16 years experience in the industry, so you obviously noticed a big change for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's, as you say, it's great to see things start to reopen. I managed to get a haircut.
Yes, amazing.
ahead of our webinar, so yeah, got the important things done. But yeah, over the last year, I guess the good news is the acceleration in the technology sector to support organisers whilst we can't be in a physical space. And that's happened across the sector. Within CircData, we've had a year to completely create a new community platform, which can also support physical events, digital events, and soon to be hybrid events. So I think it's been, the only good news is it's given us time. Which, as you know, when events are going on, you have very little time. You're always sort of traveling around, going on to the next event. So it's been really good to take a step back, to work with our partners, our organisers, to really, I guess, reimagine what they need going forward. So I know we're going to talk about hybrid events, the buzzword which we all love and hate, I guess. But the way we see it is, rather than having a virtual platform and a physical event, and you've got two audiences, we like to see it more as it's one community. The hybrid platform should be used to drive engagement to the physical event as priority. So as we all know, physical events, they're the best interactions you can have. You don't want a virtual platform to make it too easy for people just to stay at home.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, we've been working with our organisers to allow our hybrid platform Fusion. So its first mission is to drive traffic to your physical events. And we find, I mean, we've all been to probably too many virtual events over the last year. And what we find is people listen to content and then in between sessions, they make a coffee, they take a Zoom call, they take a Teams call. They're not fully immersed in the event, that they're doing many different things, or looking after kids, walking the dog, etc., etc. So if we can support the organisers to get people back to the physical event, where they cancel their diaries, it's a complete offline immersive experience where they'll engage with the content, they'll engage with your exhibitors, no distractions, no kids to deal with, no dogs to walk.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're aiming for. So our hybrid platform, I guess, main focus, drive traffic to the physical events. Second focus is, obviously, you always get people that either can't travel because of restrictions, or even before COVID, the average B2B event would have 50% attendance.
Yeah, I know.
So,
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so we see it as, if we can help organisers get the 50% physical that they always did have, and help convert the other 50% who never attend into virtual attendees, so you can get an overall attendance of 70-80% across the two worlds.
Yeah.
Which can obviously create more leads for exhibitors, more seminar attendees across both worlds. I think that's kind of our mission, if you like, to have an overall attendance of those kind of levels, rather than let's create a virtual platform and take away people from the physical event. So you may have similar attendance, but you're going to have a lot less physical engagements, which we don't want.
I think that sounds great. I think you've definitely kind of hit the nail on the head. I think, although a lot of people, including me, I really enjoy a virtual event because you can, like you said, you can make yourself a coffee, you're in your own home, you can wear your pajamas if you want, your loungewear. I think that's great, but you made a really good point that live events is so different when you're engaging. So I think the mixture of the both is a great idea. I guess, what have you found as the challenges? Because like you mentioned, although it's the same community and the same audience, it's so tricky. Obviously, you're trying to impress people through their computer, through their iPad, equally as at the actual event. It can be quite tricky because, engagement tactics are so different. What have you found the challenges that your customers or your clients have faced?
Yeah, definitely. So just looking at virtual events, which we've obviously been running for the last sort of over 6 months now.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you mentioned, engagement. So working with the organizer to help ultimately create more leads for exhibitors. In the exhibition model, that's kind of almost the most important part of an event. So we've worked on different ways. So rewarding visitors when they engage with so many exhibitors, releasing more content. So if you could perhaps say, if you visit 10 virtual stands, we'll give you access to this white paper after the event, or we'll unlock additional digital content.
That sounds great, yeah.
So really trying to get them to interact with not just the seminar content, but also the exhibitors, and to try and take that time out of their day to engage, rather than, as we say, making coffee is probably the most important one, but maybe the dog walk can wait until the end of the day.
I think that's a really good point, because like you said, it can be so easy to be distracted when you're in your kitchen, your lounge, your office, whatever you're in. You could just scroll on your phone, which is something you're less likely to do at a live event because you think you'd look rude. So I think that's a really good point about actually unlocking some, I guess, like different portals for them to access, or different content for them to access, because if we've learned anything from this past year, everyone loves free content. I certainly do. So I think that's a really good point. And I guess you've touched on hybrid. Where do you see the future of hybrid? Because like you said, it's the buzzword of this year. I think it's something about over a year ago, I didn't even know what hybrid was. And even now I'm like, there's so many possibilities, which is crazy. Where do you see hybrid going? I mean, for your company, it would be great for it to stick around, but where realistically do you see it going?
Yeah, so everything we've been working on is kind of unrelated to COVID, if that makes sense. So we're thinking sort of post-pandemic, what do organisers want to do? So in terms of hybrid, I mean, we could just call it an event rather than sort of giving it a buzzword, but we have developed with our organisers an online platform. As I mentioned, which can work in a few different ways depending on the journey of the audience. So number one is, as I say, drive traffic to the physical event, allow visitors to pre-book meetings with exhibitors, which is particularly important with social distancing and number of people on the stand, that kind of stuff. Booking into physical seminars, basically just planning their whole experience, however, not letting them do too much before the show. So if you imagine a traditional virtual platform, they'll let you do everything all the time. And if we let people talk to exhibitors before the show, then it's another reason not to attend the physical show, for example.
Yeah.
Really so I think working with the organisers, really understanding their event, what they want to achieve, and setting out those different journeys. That's kind of on the driving to the physical side. If we know the visitor can't attend and it's purely a virtual experience, we can give them a different model. So we can allow them to book virtual meetings. We can allow them to watch live content streamed into the platform from the physical event. So the physical event will become the recording studio, if you like, for the virtual attendees. We have a number of engagement tools. So I guess our main USP is one platform, one support contact, one set of reporting, no integrations, no latency, one user journey.
There's a lot to think about, isn't there? Because I've got a live events background. So before I started this role, I was just like, what is a virtual event? Surely it's just like a Zoom chat. But no, there's so much to think about. Production companies, tech checks. So like you said, I think if you do it all in one place, it saves having to, rely on someone else to come back to you, to then go back to them. And you're like the middleman, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly that. So in terms of when the live event actually happens, the physical attendees can do live Q&A on the event app. The virtual attendees can do it through the web platform. One data source. They can like each other's questions because it's a single audience. I think what's also important is with a physical attendee, there's always things you don't have time to do because you just run out of day at the physical event. So we have like an ROI report for the visitor, so they can log in, they can look at the content they engage with, the exhibitors they went to see. They can continue those journeys online after the event. And we love Netflix, don't we, the last year? So
yes,
a lot of our learnings we're taking from Netflix. We're providing the audience with like what's coming on next based on their behavior, whether that's before the event in terms of engaging with content, at the event, or after the event. So really understanding the audience based on their behavior and giving them more of what they like, ultimately.
That's a really good point there as well, as always thinking about your audience. I've said this so many times. I think it can be so easy thinking, we'll just do a virtual event because it's easier, because at the end of the day, it's not actually easier. But you need to really think about your audience, because I've said before, if you've got like an older audience who maybe don't necessarily understand Zoom or don't understand virtual platforms, it's just not right for them. So it is just kind of understanding what they want. And I think it's really great that you see your audience, whether they're virtual or physical, as one audience. You're not seeing those two separate kind of groups of people, because I think that can be where you kind of get a bit stuck knowing how to target them, how to provide information for them. In terms of marketing, obviously marketing virtual and physical events can be so different. How have you found actually getting the word out, I guess, about the two offerings, and I guess what you're offering at Circ Data?
So in terms of how our organisers are using it, which is kind of the sort of key part. So as I mentioned, the whole platform comes to the physical event, and we sort of manage that process. What we can also do is, within the platform, we can ask the audience, can you still make the physical event? Or what we're trying to do is a more positive question. So what time are you attending? Rather than saying, can you attend? Because so
getting the idea in their head almost, isn't it?
Yeah, so sort of going with the what time do you want to attend? If they can't attend, then we can flag them as a pure virtual attendee, and
Yeah.
we can provide that data to the organizer to then push out the virtual messaging a week before the show. If they obviously select I'm attending at 10 o'clock, then we can then let them know about additional content, keynotes starting at 10:30 at the physical show, all of that kind of side. So I think in terms of marketing, not necessarily splitting your audience, or if you do it right before the event when you know they're not going to attend, or after the event. So your classic non-attendees, you can send them an email saying the virtual platform's now live. Watch content on catch up, engage with the exhibitors. So what I see as well is, rather than having the two things at the same time, you may decide to have the virtual element after the event, purely to, again, drive people to the physical show. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing organisers monitoring travel restrictions for their international audience. And by default, you can then flag those people as virtual attendees.
Yeah, which is great because it like opens up your audience. I've said before to so many people who've come on the podcast, I probably wouldn't have met them without, you know, the ability to speak to them virtually and go to events with them virtually, because it's just amazing. Anyone. So we've had some technical difficulties, but we're back. We had a really great question. Do you think marketing a virtual event is easier than a physical one? And I know you were talking about, you know, the differences of, obviously the audience is the same people, but it's harder to kind of catch those two different people.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the whole sort of content fatigue. So people have a lot more choice now in terms of how to get content digitally. So you could say a virtual event can be harder from that standpoint. In terms of engagement, a virtual event, your audience will never be as engaged as a physical one, as we mentioned. So I think, I mean, they're quite similar, but in terms of getting your audience to a physical event, that's where you're going to get the most engaged interactions. So I'd say I'm pro physical always. However, really see the benefit of the virtual side, as I mentioned, to help convert the people who can never attend, and to track and give people more of what they want on their sort of hybrid model.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as an actual attendee, so kind of away from the business, the company and the things you actually do, how have you found attending virtual events? I mean, I think it was a bit of a rocky start where I attended one and I was like, this is absolutely awful. But then I attended another one and I was like, this is great. So I think at the beginning, you know, what was it, about a year ago, so March 2020, it was all a bit strange where no one really knew what to do. No one understood how to network. How have you found that?
Yeah, agreed. And as you say, also the technology platforms needed to catch up in terms of what the audience needed. I'd say, how have I found virtual events? Well, this one, we had a technical problem.
We did, but we're back.
So yeah, that can happen every now and again. I'm sure everyone would agree with this. When you attend a virtual event, you're most likely doing 2 or 3 things at the same time. So keep your audience engaged is the key and the challenge, and that's always going to be the case. So people have way too many devices in their life and apps pinging them and Teams calls and Zoom and that kind of stuff. So it is really important to take people out of that technology bubble into the physical experience. However, if they have to be a virtual audience, making them feel part of the physical world, getting your exhibitors to push up content, photos of the live event, allowing your virtual attendees to ask questions to the live speakers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and kind of making them feel a part of it as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think
it
can be tricky because, like you said, I mean, you know, I'll be watching TV and without being completely subconsciously, I'll scroll on my phone, which is exactly the same as a virtual event. You know, your phone's there, the kettle's there, like we just said, there's so many distractions. But actually, if you're in the event, you know, you feel rude getting your phone out or doing else like other things. So I think it's tricky, but it definitely sounds like you've kind of got the best of both worlds kind of nailed down at the moment.
And the TV ones, that's a good example. If you go to the cinema, which is like the physical experience, you turn your phone off, you wouldn't dream of having it on. Everyone would look at you thinking, what are you doing? So yeah, I think that's important. What I really like, my unbiased opinion about our platform is one set of reporting for the organisers. So we have a live dashboard which breaks out engagements across physical and virtual, all on one dashboard, one platform. It will break out the exhibitor engagements across physical at stand as well as virtual stands. We can break out live seminar engagements, again, across the physical and the virtual and the on-demand side of the virtual. So the organizer has one less thing on their head. Everything's in one place. They don't have to download reports from their traditional badge supplier at the event, an event app, a virtual platform, and everything in between. So I think our main thing is just to take that workload off the organizer.
Absolutely.
And present actually what's happening across all of their touch points in one place, rather than, for example, if someone says how many people attended our event, you'd have to download a virtual number, a physical number, etc. So having it all in one place, I think, gives that enhanced value to the organizer.
Absolutely.
As well as like the additional behavioral data, so we can customize future engagements on our community platform based on if they click something on the app, the virtual platform, or they got their badge scans at the physical show.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it's been so lovely speaking, Mark. So despite the technical issues, we managed to bring it back. The full episode will be available on Spotify for anyone that is listening on Facebook. So it's been lovely speaking. Where can people come and find you if they have more questions or if they want to follow up anything to do with Select Data?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you've got any questions for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Sullivan. If you want any more information about Select Data, best place is our website. And yeah, happy to answer any additional questions if they pop them on the chat at a later date.
Perfect. Thanks for joining, Mark. And thank you everyone who tuned in. Apologies if it's been a bit glitchy when listening to this on Spotify. I've had to edit it. So yeah, thanks to everyone who tuned in. If you've got any questions about choosing the right event tech platform, or if you're an event organizer just wondering how you can kind of go about starting your own virtual event, then feel free to pop me an email at rian@eventmindpro.com, and we'll see you all next week.
Cool. Thanks, Rian.